NRL Tier 2 pre-season. I hope you can all hear me. As I just started to like, so I'm not sure if it's working or not. But welcome has received Prince invalidating a lap time, and it's been a very interesting start at the moment. Don Chad on top on the medium tyres, while three soft tyre runners of Prem's M15 and Jetsy all trail him at the moment, and everyone else is still yet to set a lap or on the mediums or hards, which they set right at the start of the session. But a lot of people opted for the soft now to see Lee Casper on the lap, which he's invalidated. So I'm assuming he's going for another one right now as he heads down towards turn 1. Him is braking up perfectly, sweeping the car over to the right before the downhill section that ends sector 1, down into 4 and then into 3rd to get the rotation before dipping it down to 2nd. Very nice, kept nice and clean. 6 tenths up on his lap already as he exits the 1st sector, deploying that ERS. Of course, it is not qualifying, so they have to manage the ERS themselves compared to the end of the game, just do it for them. But as he ends the 2nd sector, we'll see what the stats time is, hopefully in the 50s, and it is. He's 1.6 up on his lap time. Let's hope his teammate Dutchy gets out of the way, which he does very nicely as he heads down into this long section of right-handers before sweeping left. This corner is very easy to misjudge. He gets tight on the curb, but luckily for him, it doesn't spin. Deploying the DRS as it comes to the final bend of corners, locks up a bit, but gets it very nice, rotated before the final corner, picks it up nicely and runs to the line. He's used all his DRS, so he won't have the boost of that across the line, but it goes as P4 for the Aston Martin driver on the stock compound tyres. A very respectable lap here in France, and whilst we were watching that, I believe they go for the lap, which is put him into P5 in the Mercedes. So a lot of interesting driver news over the off-season. If you haven't seen them already, so yeah, obviously AJK has just been disqualified from the session, has moved to Alpine for this season and will team up with his real life friend and rival from last season, Harry, as you see Jesse getting out of the way of the Aston Martin on a flying lap, I believe, or maybe he's just backed off, but yeah, getting out of the way nicely for the Aston Martin, as it looks like Prince is on a lap and Koenig, another friend, is holding him up as I will adjust my mic so you guys can hear me better. Hopefully this is better. Hopefully this is better for you guys, as I've moved my mic closer to it, so hopefully the audio quality is much stronger for you guys watching on screen. As you see, Prince getting held up a little by the Haas driver. The Haas driver of Prince Blonsdale. So the Ozone Harry still yet to set a lap. Harry's not really been doing much in this practice session, but he's now coming out of the pits to hopefully set a lap time. Liozo also yet set a lap time. Prince is at the bottom, which is very uncharacteristic for the Red Bull driver who we saw topping the time sheets a lot of quali last season, as he loses the rear end and becomes not the first person to spin at this corner. So that is seeming to catch a lot of these drivers out today, as Ducky's on a lap with 6 tenths down, and Jetsy's also on a lap. So let's see where the Alfa Romeo driver can put himself, this being his rookie season in NRL, as he locks up a bit alongside his teammate Dan in Alfa Romeo. They are very good friends, and both with a lot of pace, as he tops the time sheet with 29.9, an absolutely blistering lap time from the Dutch driver, which puts him in P1, as we see Don Chad taking a very interesting route through the chicane. Dutchy going for a long run on the soft compound tyres, and it's still out there. Jayville heating up his tyres. I don't know, interesting tactics from Mercedes, as Prince is into the pit, and let's ride on board with Harry to see what he does on this lap time. As he rounds the final corner and comes up to the line, goes P2 with a 31.4, which is a very respectable lap time for the Alpine driver. Hello Dan, and welcome to the stream. Maybe now what's done Chad on the lap. I believe he just went P4, P3, sorry. So, no, actually that is still his medium tyre lap time, so doing very good up there to be P3 on the mediums, showing his pace from Tier 1 last season, where he was very quick during season. And thank you to Scout Dan for subscribing to the channel. Every little helps, and that is much appreciated by the whole NRL community. So thank you for subscribing, and I'll try to fix my mic because apparently it is still not working that well. Is this any better? I'm not sure if this should be any better for you guys, but hopefully it is. There's Cassius on a lap time carry the tyres. He's had enough of the testing for today, and he will join his teammate in the garage for the rest of the session as friends go P2 with a 31-0 on the soft compact tyres. As M15 was on a lap, but he invalidated, so that'll be quite the frustration for him, as Caspian was very wide out of turn 2. But let me just try and fix whatever's going on with my mic, and I'll catch you guys in a bit. Hello, is this any better? Hopefully this has made the change, and now I've lost game audio, so that is very nice. I'm not quite sure what's happening right now. Okay, I've got audio back, so hopefully this is a bit better. It's a bit quiet, but I'm still able to hear it. So yeah, okay, this is better, but apparently still too low for you guys to also hear the game. His Koenig runs up to the line to finish his lap time, and it was 2 seconds off his previous 1:34.7 as he spins out of the turn 1, turn 2 complex, which has been catching multiple drivers out today. Liezo's own driver yet set lap time, with of course AJK getting disqualified for reasons that'll be looked at after this session, as whilst I was sorting out my audio issues, Javel has gone P2 with a 1:36, and I just need to change my audio settings one more time, and then I think it will be good. So hopefully this is better for you guys watching the stream, and hopefully you can hear me now, and we won't have this issue for the rest of the season. I guess it's a good thing we got sorted out in pre-season and not the actual races, as not a lot is going on between the drivers, as a lot have gone for early soft tyre runs and have not set a lap time apart from that, with the top 9 all having done soft tyre runs, with only Don Chad on the mediums for the 1:31.5 being the only exception to that rule. Prince still on that 1:37 on the mediums, which we all know is not his true pace, as he can be lighting up this grid when he is on form, but at the moment he's not on form, as he's struggling with the limits of this track at the moment. But Jabel's into the pit lane for Mercedes, and Prems is now on an outlap, and so is his teammate. So maybe he'll give his teammate a tow, or vice versa, on the next straight, hopefully. So let's run you through the order as it stands right now. It's Jetsy on top, who's retired with a 129.999, which is basically a 130, but we won't talk about it. Jayville is P2 with a 136.25 in the Mercedes, and Prems follows him on a 130.038, which is marginally quicker than his teammates, but both are on laps on the soft compound tyres. So we'll have to look out for them. Prems has gone marginally quicker through the first sector, and MW15 has invalidated. As now riding ball with Prems, it's a very hooked up lap so far as he enters the second sector. He's only marginally up coming across the second sector split, so that'll be quite worrying for the McLaren driver. But we'll have to see how he does in this final sector, as he runs wide and invalidates, unfortunately for him, and then he loses the car in probably a moment of frustration. But someone else who's on a lap on the softs is Elite Casper. Let's see where he can put his Aston Martin, swapping the blue colours of Red Bull for Aston Martin this season as he rounds the final corner, running a bit wide and over the yellow sausage curve. As he runs up to the line, let's see where this puts him. He does not improve, unfortunately for him, and stays down in P7, which is a huge disappointment for the Aston Martin driver, who now is a second quicker than his teammate Dutch. He's still ahead of Prince, who's yet to set a competitive lap time, as Prems retires on the track, which will earn some license points, unfortunately. But anyways, MW15 is on a lap time, so let's see where this will put the McLaren driver, see if he can accelerate himself up into the top 3, as he currently sits outside that by a very marginal gap. It's 1 second to the leader as it stands, but not that far away from his teammate at the moment. But anything could change, and we still have 26 minutes left here in Paul Ricard, and a lot of drivers I'm sure who are yet to set competitive lap times, like Prince, Jabel spins and MW15's into the pit lane. Casper's on an invalidated lap and also follows MW15 into the pit lane, so meaning Koninkron and Jayville are the only 2 cars on track, and Jayville's on an invalidated lap, so we'll run on board with the Haas, as he's 1.1 down on his lap time. He's been struggling to find pace so far in this session, but we don't know, he could be sandbagging, but from last season this could be his actual pace, as he wasn't the quickest driver per se in tier 2 last season. But whilst we have a bit of break in fast paced action, I'll run you through the driver lineup for this season. So Jayville 17 in Mercedes, swapping to, no, actually staying in the same team, retaining his seat for this season. Crumpton, who's not here today, has also joined Mercedes. Haswanis and Don Chad are in the Red Bull for this season, whilst Lelo King and Dirk, who are both no-shows again today, are in the Ferrari. Prems and MW15, who are looking quick as it stands, are both in the McLaren, whilst AJUK and Harry, who we saw have that interesting moment earlier, are both teaming up together at Alpine, going from rivals last season for the championship to teammates. And if you didn't watch last season's Tier 2 finale, you definitely want to go back and watch it, as it was an amazing race where AJUK came from last to win the championship, as Harry unfortunately been DNF'd. But we'll save that for another time. As Prince, who's actually in the wrong car for today, maybe getting a promotion to Red Bull for today, as this one isn't here, but Prince and Danilo are both in the AlphaTauri, whilst Elite Casper and Duchy will be the Aston Martin drive pairing for this season, with Pinty and Histaldinho, who neither could make it in the Williams. Jetsy and Dan Snyder, a very fast lineup, which we'll definitely want to look out for, as we already see Jetsy in P1 with that 29.99, and Dan Snyder, who's unfortunately for him sick today, so couldn't make it. Both going to be rapid in the Alfa Romeo, and Koning, Klon and Thunder, who is not here for personal reasons, both rounding out the grid in the Haas cars in what is set to be a very fast season, as it seems Prince is struggling a bit here in the Red Bull. Maybe he's not used to this new car after switching from the Alpine, but he took 3 pole positions, I believe, last year, but at the moment he's struggling and is down in P10, being 3 seconds off the nearest car. So maybe he needs some setup work, but something definitely needs to change down at that Red Bull garage to even have a chance of fighting for the title again this season. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Casper and Duchy both on laps. Duchy's invalidated again, so we're right on board with Casper, because it says it's 9/10 down, but I do not believe that one bit, because his turn 1 and 2 was not terrible, and like I said, he is 600ths up through the first sector as he rounds the curve to start the long main straight, which seems to go on forever before 2 quick chicanes with the left and the right, which are very easy to outbrake yourself or to get it wrong, but he gets it hooked up nicely through those 2 turns as he ends the second sector about 4/10 up, going into this long sweeping right-hander, followed by a very long and another very long sweeping right-hander, which you have to almost wait for, otherwise you'll understeer off the track and into this corner, which is also very hard to get right, as he rounds the final 2 corners, making sure that he's got the car placed nicely to get the perfect rotating through the final corner. Very nice and hooked up by the Aston Martin driver, and he moves himself up into P5 with a 1:31.384. Very respectable lap time for the Aston Martin, as Koenigsegg has invalidated again, and I don't know if we will see Liozo in this session, but let's ride on board with his teammate Jayville, who might be going for a lap, maybe not. Looks like he is. Took a very wide entry into the corner, But let's see what he can do. His battery's not fully charged up, so this might not be the ideal lap for the Mercedes drivers. He has a massive moment on the exit of turn 1, nearly binning it, but luckily for him, keeping it out of the barriers and keeping his car intact and all in one piece. As we now ride on board MW15, who has switched to softs for the mediums and looks to be going on a long run, but doesn't have a lot of fuel left or ERS, so we'll probably have to box after this lap, as it looks like Castle went for another push lap, but he just backed off as he invalidated. And Dutch is going for another lap, but has 0% ERS, so not the greatest ERS management by the Dutch driver, as he also rounds the chicane, gets it a bit twitchy on the exit, but pulls the car over to the left to set up the next turn, but he is 1.2 down and probably will not be improving with those ERS levels, as now we watch Prince beginning a lap. He's improved his 35.7 to 34.1, so let's see what he can do on this lap time, if he can go any quicker than he already has. As he rounds the first two corners a bit deep through turn 1, but it is still one of those corners where you can still carry the momentum and keep the time lost by running deep. As he's 7 turns up, just proving my point there, as he runs very wide, close to an invalidation. It looks like the Red Bull driver is struggling from where he was last season. He's running over all the curbs, which I'm sure is not the most time effective way to drive down that straight, but he gets the chicane very nicely hooked up. I expect to see him I expect to see a purple sector, but he's only 0.8 up. That looks very clean. I'm surprised he's not much faster than what he is already, as he now rounds these very tricky corners to get right, and rounds the corner where we saw Prem spin earlier in this session, as he now rounds the final 2 corners, getting it nice and hooked up before hitting perfect rotation the final corner, a bit deep, and this is a bit of time on the traction, but still should be a very good lap time, as he improves by 0.6 to 33.4, but he's still only P9 in this session. So maybe it's the track, maybe it's the car, but the man who finished P5 in last year's Tier 2 standings is seeming to be struggling a bit here at the start of the season. But one man who definitely isn't struggling is Jayville, who is taking some very interesting lines through the corners, but he ended last season on a high with that win in Bahrain, where he drove a brilliant race to win the Bahrain Grand Prix with a very interesting podium, which we have not seen before. Him, Danilo and Libo K-Dots, who's now driving in Tier 3 for this season, but shout out to him. Got a very unlikely, I'd like to say, podium in Bahrain. Yeah, Jayville taking some interesting routes, trying to get a good look at the French scenery around him, so as we get a lovely camera angle. But the Mercedes driver will be preparing for his soft lap time that can hopefully get him close to Jetsy at the top, who did 1 lap on the softs and then dipped, I think. So very interesting tactics from the Dutch driver, but it's working for him at the moment, as one of the Aston Martins spun in Sector 1. I believe it was only Casper, but MW15 in the McLaren also on the outlap, but let's run on board with Jabil, who's already invalidated his lap time, or maybe it was this lap and next lap invalidated because of his interesting lines. But he's definitely not learning at all, as he just completely skips out turn 3, 4 and 5, no, turn 3 and 4. But MW15, let's hope he has a better attempt at staying on track than the Mercedes, who's currently in P2, only 4 tenths quicker than him. So can MW15 put his McLaren up into the top 3, which we saw him fail to do earlier? He had a massive moment on the exit of that corner, but he doesn't have that moment and keeps it a car facing the right way out of the first 2 turns, and gets the rest of sector 1 very nicely hooked up, bit loose on the track, and he's actually 5 tenths down, so it doesn't look like a great lap so far from the McLaren driver, but he might be going for a long run. We can't tell right now, but it's not looking like he will challenge the top of the time leaderboards at the moment, as he crossed the second sector split and he is 1.2 down, so definitely not a push lap as it seems like it, as we join on board with Elite Casper, who's 4 tenths down on his lap time as car. And let's see what his sector 2 split is. 8 tenths down. A lot of drivers seem to be struggling in that sector 2. Maybe it's because of the ERS, maybe they don't charge up their ERS well for that second sector, but as you see, another mistake in the second sector, but it's not really working out for a lot of drivers in the second sector. And Koenig Klon, he's had no ERS the whole session, his charging isn't very good, but Jabil's actually on the lap and he's not that far down, but he's lost it through the chicane, just took too much of the inside curb on entry, and that meant his car was out of control for the second one, where he just lost the rear end, and there's not much he could do about that one, as MW15 actually ended up invalidating his lap time. Cass was into the pits, but Prince is on another outlap, and Mercedes are sandbagging, I presume, as Riozo is still yet to leave the garage, which is very interesting tactics. But we will see what this session holds for him, as Casper's back into the pit lane for Aston Martin. He's a driver we haven't really talked about last season. He joined through the middle of the season and didn't have fantastic pace, but he was always there in the points, there or thereabouts, but he couldn't really make it work, finishing in the lower half of the standings, P17 I believe, which is respectable considering the number of races we had, but he'll be hoping for a much better this season, and he's certainly doing it up in P5 as it stands at 1:31.3. Of course, this is only pre-season, so I expect some drivers to be sandbagging, some drivers not really taking this seriously, Harry, AGRUK, but yeah, so some drivers will not be showing their true pace, which is obviously confusing for us, as we have no idea what the actual pace of the drivers is going into the season. And of course, you got to factor in those drivers who unfortunately couldn't make it, so it's all to play for in round 1 as Prince invalidates through turn 4. Very good session, Wright F1, who finished the session MP4 as it stands. These P4s, Jabil goes for another spin in the Mercedes. He's taking too much of that inside curb and spinning in front of the Aramco sponsoring. But he will now move on, hopefully into the pit lane, as I presume those tyres will be cooked, and he does, as I said. So now only 2 drivers out on track, which is Dutchy taking an interesting line, and Prince, who we saw invalidate at the beginning of his lap. So looking at the battery, looks like he's backed off and he's going to go for it again on these soft tyres. And he was very quick last season, as I said. Three pole positions in last season, but he only picked up that 1 win at, I want to say, Mexico. No, it was, I can't remember what race it was, but he only picked up 1 race last season, 1 race win last season, in a field that was very equally spread, where 10 drivers took race wins, and he was one of them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this season, with obviously a few quicker drivers coming into the grid, making it more competitive. Will Prince keep his good form in qualifying up, or will he suffer to the hands of the quicker drivers coming in? But at the moment he is not flying high as we saw him last season in Alpine, but he is 8 tenths up on this lap, to be fair to him. He's having a very good lap as it stands, with only 9 minutes of the session remaining, as he now rounds the long right-hander, ending sector 3 by going around that left-hander before this almost sort of double apex where he wants to miss the first one and hit the second one, but he backs out, which is very interesting because he was 8 tenths up. So maybe he thinks he has more in the tank and he's just conserving it for the last minutes of practice, where the track grip will be at its peak and everyone will be improving, hopefully, as Jayville can't stop taking these interesting lines through the corners, and it's only him and Koenig Kron out on track. Very good mileage for the Haas driver, who's been out a lot of this session, but he's only managed to put up a 1:34 as his fastest lap, but still very good practice for him, as we see the gap to leaders, the closest challenger being Jayville, who's currently 6 tenths off. So very quick pace from the Alfa Romeo. He did his fastest lap on the sub-compound tyres like the rest of the top 6. But it will be interesting to see how everyone's pace actually is come the start of the season. But let's ride on board with Koenig Kron, who's on a lap. He's been on track pretty much the whole session, so again, as I said earlier, good mileage for the Haas team heading into the season, who will be looking for a much better season than they had last season, where they could only finish P7 in the constructors due to the help of NRL David, who came in during the season but was very quick from the off and took 1 win, including that stunning domination at Mexico last season, where he led from start to finish and didn't look challenged and was 21 seconds ahead until the final safety car closed the pack up, but still managed to keep his cool and bring it home for P1 in the intermediate conditions. But Prince is also an outlap, but Jabel's on the lap and is marginally up. This time he doesn't spin through the 2 chicanes as he comes round the right hand bend. He's marginally down, so it doesn't look like it will be a big improvement for the Mercedes driver, as he lags a bit on my screen. But now he flicks the car down into 5th gear, choosing not to go down into 4th, feeling more comfortable in... Oh, he's just lost it, feeling more comfortable in 5th, I was about to say. and he lost it on the curb of that corner, which you've seen catch out multiple drivers today as he gets out of the way of Prince quite nicely. Prince is only on the out lap, so it's not that costly for the Red Bull drivers. We see Conan Klon taking an interesting line through turn 1 and 2, but we're now into the final 5 minutes of the session, and all the drivers are coming out to start set fast lap times on the sub-compound tyres, and Prince Cloncio spins again and joins his friend Conan Klon on the exit of turn 1. So that was not very good, as he chooses to take the Drayville line, which has become infamous during this practice session. Chooses to take that line through the turn 3 and 4 complex, as Dutchy is going to begin a lap on the softs. Don Chad still P7 on those medium tyres lap, which you saw him set at the start, and he hasn't come out since. So very interesting from the Red Bull, but Conan Klon is off again. But let's ride on board with Dutchy and see how he does on his lap time, choosing to deploy a lot of ERS through the first sector, which is not really necessary, as he will be struggling towards the end of the lap, but it's his own choice. He's marginally up through the first sector, gets a nice drive out of the first sector onto the main straight, deploying all the ERS. Very nice at the moment. He brakes just after the 100-meter board, gets the car nice and turned in, deciding to leave his ERS on, which might make the rear a little bit unstable, as you saw there, but still only marginally quicker at the moment. But comes the final sector, and he's already used all his ERS, meaning he will be able to use none on the very important main straight, as we see Prince and Jabel having a bit of a battle / kerfuffle through sector 1 and 2. But Dutchy's on a lap now, so let's see where this puts him as he rounds the final corner. It wasn't the best entry from the Dutch driver, but as he runs up in his Aston Martin, keeps him P8, but puts him into the 132s for the first time this session, as Conan Klon is in the pit lane. I got a very weird camera angle, as Jayville is continuing to be a lunatic. So that will be looked at after this session, hopefully. And Prince has also gone for a spin, like the Mercedes driver did just a couple moments ago, and now they're playing a very interesting game of who gets to go first, like we saw Max and Lewis doing last season in real life F1. But looks like Jabel's looking for the toe possibly off the Red Bull, and the Red Bull is going to give it to him, deploying all his ERS as he runs down to sector 1, and Jabel is looking for every advantage he can get off the Red Bull, and he spins out of turn 1. Maybe the dirty air was a bit too much for the Mercedes, who then proceeds to retire on track, and Prince cuts the corner again. Conan Klon, who is on an outlap and will most likely be the last person to set a competitive lap time in this session. So that's if he gets to the line in time, as he's driving very slowly as it stands, but only him and Prince will be out to finish the first pre-season testing session of the season, as Prince looks like he's out of fuel by the marker. Yep, he is out of fuel. So Conan Klon will be the last driver to complete a lap time uh, today, and yeah, I'm right. I totally agree. The track, they made it a lot slower on this year's game, obviously. So drivers are finding it a lot harder to compete and set competitive lap times, but it is only pre-season, so we'll have to wait for the first round, which is next weekend in Saudi Arabia, as Conan Khan is now going to start his lap time. He's last at the moment, but hopefully he can improve. He'll be the last driver to set a lap as he now crosses the line. So let's ride on board with this. Turn your audio up, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, there's a spin for Conan Klon. He just loses it on the exit of the chicane. It was going very well for the Haas driver up until then. So that will be his practice session over, which means the session will end with the current standings, unfortunately for him, meaning he will be the slowest of all 10 drivers that set a lap time in today's session, being almost 4 seconds off the leader. But I'm confident this isn't his real pace, and he was just using this as a bit of a practice session, as he should do, as he got a lot of good mileage in today for the Haas team, and Prince will be the last driver to cross the line, well, coming to the pit lane to end the session in the Red Bull car. So that will be the end of what has been a very interesting hour of pre-season, and hopefully you'll join us for Tier 2's season round 1 at Saudi Arabia next week on Monday, as you see both the cars being towed into the pit lane to end the session. And don't forget to catch us tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, where we'll be streaming Tier 1 PlayStation, Tier 3 PlayStation and Tier 1 PC pre-season as well. But let's run through the final standings. Jetsy on top by 6 temps to Jayville, Prems is P3, MW15 in the McLaren P4, Casper P5, Harry and P6, Don Chad P7, Dutchy Pin starting the chain of Dutch drivers in P8 before Prince Cronte and Conan Cron round out the top 10, with Leozo not setting a lap time and AJ UK getting disqualified earlier in the session. So all season tomorrow on season run the interest shouted in Royal Cap tomorrow, or and I hope all of you tomorrow. So what, and see you next week tomorrow.